Bob Winchester is the Code Compliance Administrator. I'm the Environmental Code Administrator. He handles non-permit violations. I do the same thing with any site that has a permit of some kind or a permit that was completed in the past year. And I'm also the person that's responsible for standard grading plan applications. What a standard grading plan is, has morphed over the years. It's really a mini erosion and sediment control plan that's used to satisfy your sediment erosion control obligations. Okay, now we're advance this slide. At the point. Okay, how do you do it here? I just need another slide. Next slide. All right. Okay, just use that arrow. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Computers and I don't get along sometimes. We covered a lot of this stuff in the past presentation. The way the county code is written, that's Article 16, Section, actually it's 301. You don't need an approval if you're clearing or grading less than 5,000 square feet of land except in the critical area buffer, where you really can't do anything without an approval. So projects under 5,000 square feet of disturbance and outside the buffer, you're exempt from having a grading permit, which means you don't have to have engineered plans, you don't have to submit a bond, you don't have to pay permit fees and all that stuff. So you really need to keep your capstone projects under 5,000 square feet of disturbance and out of the buffer. I think you pretty much figured that out for yourself. Also, adding impervious lot coverage anywhere in the critical area is subject to something we call ESD to the NUP, and I'll cover that later. But basically, it's stormwater management. And that can be paid in lieu of, or plantings, or a mini BM best management practice. But, and here's the but. We strongly recommend that for earth disturbances under 5,000 square feet for your capstone projects, and for any project you do in the future for somebody else, that you go ahead and fill out the standard grading plan application you get it submitted. Because the standard grading plan application has morphed into the clearinghouse for all the various different approvals that you may have to get that you didn't even know you had to get. You heard how complex that critical area code is. I don't know how much of that stuff you guys follow. But I deal with it every day, and I still have to consult the code every once in a while because I'm unclear of situations. So we recommend that you apply for one, and what happens is we review the whole thing, and we tell you what you need to do. Now, the application package that you need to submit includes a cover letter, and we need your contact information on there, okay? We need to know who to call, who to send letters to, and stuff like that. We need the standard grading plan application form filled out, and we have to have a tax account number. The reason why we have to have a tax account number is the ladies that enter all this information in the computer can't enter it in there without a tax account number. That's the data managers we're dealing with. There's no flexibility there. They're going to have it. What? No, it's a tax account number. It's the state tax account number. Okay.
So that's for when the project covers two parcels.
You just need one tax account number. Okay, because without a tax account number, they can't enter it in the computer. A lot of times, if you have the address, the ladies will pull up the tax account number for you. Then we need 3 copies of the site plan. The site plan has to have sufficient detail on it for us to know what you're doing. And if you're in the critical area, fill out the critical area worksheet. And that basically says if you're adding any new impervious surface or you're cutting any trees. So those are the things that have to be in the package. The review and approval process goes everywhere. You submit that to the Department of Inspections and Permits, the second floor, 2664 Riva Road. You can drop it off, mail it in. The admin staff logs it into the standard grading plan database, and you gotta have that tax account number. If you talk real nice to the ladies, they might look it up for you. Then we have a field evaluation by one of the inspectors who works for me. They actually take the thing out, look at the site, and see if they see anything that could be problematic or if it looks okay. There's an office review by Infrastructure and Environmental Programs. That's neat. I look at it. If it's in the critical area, we send them upstairs to the critical area review team, and they do a critical area review on it. We collect all the comments, and we assess what they are. And we'll either approve the standard grading plan as submitted, approve it with conditions, deny it, or send a comment letter saying you need to give us more information. That's why we gotta have good contact information. It takes at least 10 days to complete that if you're in the critical area, because the critical area reviewers want our inspector's report and pictures that the inspector took before they'll even review it. So if you're in the critical area, it's going to take 10 days. If we send your comment letter out, it's going to add to the time. What you're going to get back is a signed copy of the standard grading plan approval. It'll list any special conditions you got to meet, and a copy of the approved site plan. You'll get the assurance that if you comply with that standard grading plan and site plan, you'll be in compliance with all the applicable rules and laws that we have to deal with that you might not even know exists. And if you're building a rain garden or some type of structure, you can also call our inspection staff, and they have a lot of experience, and they can come out and help you. So that's basically the standard grading plan process. Now I want to go to the other. She's going to have to give me another presentation here. Any questions about that standard grading plan process? It's in your handout. I'm done. This is the other presentation.
What if it's not in the critical? Do you still submit?
We recommend that you do. The code says you don't need to, but we recommend you do, better be safe than sorry.
So just like the 5,000.
you don't have to, it's not code required, so we recommend that you do. Yeah.
Is the form, is the, form one at a time, form one at a time?
It should be on the inspections and permits website.
We created for you guys a paper from our cheat sheet that has a link to our form file, and so you actually, before you apply for the standard rating permit, please review what requirements are already in the plan. The plan is in lieu of a permit, that means there are terms that have to be met, so you need to understand what the terms are. I'll show you where that is.
Standard grading plan is not a permit. If you need a permit, you gotta go through the permit process. This basically says you don't need a permit, you satisfy your erosion sediment control obligations with the standard grading plan. We reviewed everything and you're okay. I'm in charge of the infrastructure and environmental programs division. We do a lot of stuff. We do erosion control and drainage inspection, enforcement, stormwater construction inspection, enforcement, stormwater maintenance inspection, public infrastructure inspection, private infrastructure inspection, illicit storm drain discharge inspection, environmental complaints, critical area enforcement for anything that's got a permit, general NPDES permit for construction site runoff. We got site control money for disturbance, you're gonna have to take it out of the permit. And we administer issue grading permits from the time they're issued to the time they're complete. We do a lot of stuff. We specialize in sediment erosion control, stormwater management, because that's what we can do in the world. And I want to draw the distinction for you between sediment erosion control and stormwater management. People interchange them, people get them mixed up. Okay, the big thing about sediment control is temporary during the construction process. Goes away when the construction's finished. Doesn't do anything to control the flow of runoff. Okay? And they're only designed to take 1 inch of runoff from a long duration, low intensity rainfall event. So all the sediment controls that you have on a grading permits, right, if it rains more than an inch, you're off limit. You're right off that. Stormwater management, on the other hand, is permanent after construction is complete. Okay, and it has to do a lot of different stuff. Recharge accounts for all the impervious surface you put down. You put down impervious surface, that's water that can't infiltrate in the ground. You're going to calculate what that is. You're going to put that much water back in the ground. Water quality, most of the pollutants in stormwater runoff is in the first 1 inch of runoff. You're going to capture that first 1 inch of runoff and provide water quality management for it in accordance with the FDE stormwater management act. The discharge can't create stream channel erosion. So you have to do a calculation, and you can't discharge the water at such a velocity it's going to erode the stream channel. You can't cause any flooding as a result of a 10-year storm. 10-year storm is a storm theoretically that only occurs so severe it only occurs once every 10 years, or there's only a 10% chance of it happening in any 1 year. And you can't expand 100-year floodplain. Two completely different things. The environmental site design is something that the Maryland Department of the Environment, well, actually the Maryland General Assembly came up with. And the buzzword that you hear is ESD to the MEP. And what that means is any development site has to practice environmental site design to the maximum extent practical. I thought it was practical, it's practical. And the whole idea there is you want to reduce the environmental footprint of new development. You want to take a watershed management approach to assessing outfalls. In the old days, all an engineer had to do was say, I'm not making the existing erosion any worse, and you get approval. Now you can't. Now you got to go down the watershed and find out what all the stream conditions are from your point of discharge to the next tributary stream. You have to assess that, and you have to make sure that you're not damaging bad outfall. Or if the outfall is already damaged, you can fix it, or else you can't discharge to it. But the big thing is the intent is to maintain or mimic the pre-existing runoff characteristics, and do that by putting a whole bunch of little micro practices all over the construction site. So here's the example of how ESD and MEP works. Suppose we got an undeveloped wall, we're going to build on this. In its natural conditions, water runs off in all directions.
Okay. Old way of doing things. We're going to level that knoll. We're going to collect all the stormwater in a storm drain system, and we're going to send it to a centralized stormwater management system, usually a big pond. Okay. So typically what happens is this area gets more water than it can handle. This area gets none, and probably the stream channel dries up. Or somebody, so that's the old way of doing things. Just flatten everything, collect it all in the storm drain, send it to one centralized place. ESD to the MEP, you're going to try to go back to what those original conditions were with runoff going off in all directions. So you're going to collect the runoff in a whole series of little micro practices spread all throughout the subdivision so that the water goes where it went originally, or in theory. So that's the way things are happening now. The big challenge that we have is that the most effective sediment control we had were big sediment basins that were to be converted to big centralized stormwater management ponds at the end of the job. They are falling out of favor because you're supposed to do ESD to the MEP and have all these little micro practices. Small practices make lousy sediment controls. So that's the challenge that we have. We're doing something that in theory is beneficial when the job is complete by sending the runoff in the same direction and pattern that it did before development took place. But while we're under construction, we have a whole lot of challenges we have to meet because the sediment controls, small sediment controls just don't work as well as the big ones. So now I want to draw the distinction between erosion control and sediment control. Erosion controls are protective measures within the construction site period to keep the soil right where it is. Okay? If we can keep the soil right where it is, we're not going to get any sedimentation. So that's erosion control. Whatever you do to try to keep the soil from moving. And that can be a number of different things. It can be internal controls, but usually it's the construction sequence. It's the way the site has to be constructed so that the sediment controls work the best. Sediment controls, on the other hand, are located around the perimeter of the site, and their last line of defense. Any soil we can't keep where it is and moves, we hope to capture in the sediment control. If we have one great big basin and collect it all and put it there, it works real good. We've got little teeny sediment traps all over the place, they don't work so well. Negative impacts of sedimentation, y'all know what that is. Erosion is the wearing away of the land by water, wind, ice, and gravity. We're going to talk about water. The erosion process consists of detachment. Soil particles have to detach from the matrix. Transport, it has to move from here to there. And deposition, that's the sediment part, where it drops out at. Okay, so that's the erosion process. Soil's over here, somehow it gets detached, it gets transported, and somewhere during that transport it drops out and becomes sediment. The erosion associated with water is splash erosion. raindrop hits the ground. Sheet transport, that's when the raindrop hits the ground and starts spreading out. Okay? Real transport, as the water starts spreading out and going downhill, it starts speeding up and starts to concentrate. As it concentrates, it can create erosion rivers. Then we have gully transport. As the flow continues to concentrate, it creates a very, very narrow stream flowing real fast that can create a gully. And, usually results in increased velocity and concentrated flows. Then we have the stream channel erosion with the head cutting, bank sloughing. All those things are the result of velocity of flow. And I talked about stream channel erosion protection. That's what that's supposed to stop. Splash attachment is when a raindrop hits the ground. Okay, now imagine for a minute that you're a raindrop, you're falling in a forest. First thing you do is you hit the tree, you hit the leaf, break it apart into smaller pieces. Leaf, tree absorbs some of it because you're making it wet. You work your way down the tree, and when you get to the bottom of the drip line, you fall to the ground. The ground's all covered with vegetation. You're not going to create much splash erosion there. As opposed to a construction site, the raindrop comes down, bam. Okay? Raindrops fall, 30 feet per second, pretty fast. And if it hits the exposed ground, the particles can splash like 2 feet away. So that's what's causing the detachment on our development sites. Raindrops falling on exposed soil. Freezing and thawing can also happen after a tough winter. The soil matrix will get all loosened up as it starts to thaw out. If we get a real bad rainfall while that's happening, we can get a real bad problem. Now, sheet flow transport is what happens as the raindrops start moving. And this accounts for the majority of the sediment yield from a construction site. These are what the sediment controls are designed to handle. So, take silt fence for example. Silt fence is only designed to handle sheet flow. If you see a concentrated flow going through a silt fence, something's wrong somewhere. Okay. Real erosion is what happens when the water starts speeding up, and that can be within 100 or 300 feet depending on the slope. Sediment erosion control plans try to intercept that water while it's still in the sheet flow mode. If it goes to the real erosion mode, then you have to have special sediment controls that are designed to handle concentrated flows. Silt fence only handles sheet flows. Concentrated flows can be handled by dikes, swales, anything that's designed to collect the water and transport it somewhere where it can be treated without creating any more erosion. Gully erosion shouldn't happen on the grading permit site because we're trying to intercept all that stuff before it speeds up and starts doing that. But gully transport is what happened in a lot of our outfall areas where you just have a storm drain and no stormwater management whatsoever. All that water went down there and creates these large gullies. And we call these the environmental sins of the past. And the rain tax that everybody talks about, one of the things we wanted to do with the rain tax is go in and fix those environmental sins of the past where whole valleys have been cut out. That stuff has to go somewhere. It wound up in our tidal creeks and bays. So it doesn't occur on a construction site. Have gully erosion on a construction site. Somebody's got a real problem. They're going to be talking to me. but it does occur in our storm drain outfall areas where there was no stormwater management. Deposition is what happens when all the transported erosion gets to a point where the velocity can now slow down so things can settle out. That's your sedimentation. Now, the potential for erosion is based on climate, topography, erodibility of the soil, and vegetative cover. Not all soils are the same. Basic soil components are sand, silt, and clay. Sand is the most erodible of the soils. Clay is the least erodible of the soils. But in terms of how easy they are to treat with erosion and sediment controls, sand is the easiest thing to treat, clay is the hardest thing to treat. And the reason why clay is the hardest thing to treat is clay particles are about the size of the head of a pin. They weigh almost nothing. They're too small to filter out through silt vents. They're too light to settle out in traps and bases. There's no voids in the soil, so you can't get infiltration, so everything that hits is going to run off. And it's the cause for the discoloration in the water you see coming off the construction site. Now, in the old days, inspectors used to draw a difference between discolored water and sediment laying around. So to an inspector, if all the sediment controls were there, everything was in compliance, and you were getting a discolored discharge, they'd say, oh, that's just discolored water. Well, it's not. Sediment laying discharge. It's sediment laying with all those small clay particles. And there's not really much you can do with those clay particles if you have them. We do now have chemical augmentation we can use. Chemicals that went from the water treatment industry, because you can get really discolored stream water, you pull it into a water treatment plant, you have to turn it into drinking water. Those chemicals now are being used in erosion and sediment control. These particles have net negative charge on them. So it's just like taking the same poles of a magnet and trying to put them together, they repel one another. So the first chemical is called the coagulant. It decharges the particles so they don't repel one another. And the second chemical is a flocculant. It's like a big ball of Scotch tape. All the smaller particles can stick to it, creates a bigger, heavier particle. It's easier to settle out. We require that now when we get these discolored discharges. Slope length, topography has a big part to play. The steeper the slope, the higher the velocity, the faster the water is going to concentrate, the more erosion is going to occur. Rainfall is the big. We don't get rain, we don't get the transport, soil stays where it is, we don't get sedimentation. We got frequency, duration, and intensity to this rain. These aren't my numbers, these are the numbers that came from the Maryland Department of the Environment. 90% of our rainstorms are 1.2 inches or less. That's why sediment control is only designed to handle 1 inch of runoff. But we can get a really high intensity rainfall event, like one of those downbursts, and for a short period of time, you have what amounts to 5 inches of waterfall in a short period of time. Totally wipe out the sediment control. MDE says we get about 43 inches of rain in a year, and it happens about 100 to 113 rainfall events in a year. This is important, you need to realize this. Normal hydrologic conditions on the vegetated site. Out of that 43 inches of rainfall, we just average it out to 45. 15 inches of it results in runoff. 15 inches of it gets infiltrated into the ground where it serves to recharge our groundwater, which serves as the base flow for a lot of our streams that dry up. And then 15 inches of it are used up by the plant life there evapotranspiration, where they soak up the water, discharge it to the atmosphere. Obviously, when you strip away vegetation, you go from 15 inches of runoff to 45 inches of runoff. The most effective sediment control that we have is vegetative cover. God's a better engineer than we are. Vegetative cover shields the soil from the impact of raindrops, like the raindrop falling on a sponge, it gets some of the energy absorbed. As the water is flowing through the grass particles themselves act like a filter out those small particles that'll go right through the silt fence, will get caught on the grass. Slows the velocity of the water. Faster the water flows, the more erosion it's going to create. It slows down the velocity of the water, more good stuff. And the roots of the plants create voids in the soil, so it opens the soil for more infiltration. Vegetation is good. Okay? So we go to great efforts to try to get these grading permit sites green as soon as possible. Because the sooner they get green, the sooner we eliminate a problem. Now, when you have development, you expose soils and they absorb less rainfall. We covered that. You pack the soil, you create impervious surface, you concentrate flows, and you might change the drainage area. ESD and the MEP is supposed to control that a little bit. We have these things called runoff curve numbers. Anybody hear of those things before? Okay, when we calculate runoff, when I was in college, I didn't calculate runoff this way. But sometime between the time I graduated and I got a job with the county, the Natural Resources Conservation Service came out with TR 55, Technical Research Bulletin 55, and that creates a new way to calculate runoff. RCN is the runoff curve number, and what I basically tell people is this is the approximate percentage of rainfall that hits the site that's going to run off. So woods in good condition have the least amount of runoff. Lawns in good condition and sandy soils have little runoff because the sand and big particles infiltrate a lot of water. Lawns and clay soils, you're going to get a lot of runoff. Streets and parking lots, it's basically all runoff. In residential housing sites and sandy soils, about half of it's going to run off. Residential sites and clay soils, 90% going to run off. In commercial sites, we probably got about 95% runoff because they're all roofs and parking lots. The more impervious surfaces you create, the more you concentrate the flows. Concentrated flows increase the velocity, concentrated flows cause erosion. There's something called the impervious cover model, which says as the percentage of impervious surfaces in a watershed increases over 15%, the health of the watershed increases proportionally. That's why the critical area has set 15% impervious as the limit for the amount of impervious area you're allowed to have on any lot in the limited development area. We can calculate all this stuff. There's a universal soil loss equation. I've looked at this stuff. You know, it might not make sense to you, so I basically summarize it. Typical exposed soil can yield 150 tons per acre per year of sediment leaving the site. Typical grass yard, you're still going to get sediment, 3 tons per acre off a year off a grass yard. Old growth forest, you can see that's really what we want to save. The more forest we can save, the less sediment we're going to have running off and getting into our streams. So that has a lot to do with development. That's why we have limits in the critical area, and that's why we have limits outside the critical area. Try to maintain as many trees as we can, because we know those are the environmental conditions that create the least amount of runoff. This is an experiment we used to do back in the day. We used to go out and be at like Chesapeake Bay Days or things like that. We don't do that anymore. But we had a little display where we had just a trough full of exposed soil, a trough of that exposed soil covered with straw mulch, and a trough with a piece of sod in it. And we could show people the difference by showing them the amount of water and the color of the water that was running off the site, because we dropped water on top of it and let the water run down. So the site with the sod on it always had the cleanest water and the least amount of water. The side with nothing had the most amount of water and the dirtiest water. Now in the middle is where we are in the construction area. You know, you can't grow grass at all times of the year. In fact, right now you can't. So the state code allows the exposed areas to be covered with straw mulch. And just straw mulch will give you a 6-time reduction over the exposed soil. So this is our rule of construction site management. You don't have to disturb it, don't. Because once you disturb it, you open up the area for erosion, transport, and sediment. If you do have to disturb it, get in there, get it graded, and get it green as soon as possible. So that's the challenges that we have. The state code requires that there be timely stabilization once a particular area is finished grading. And it's 3 days for any perimeters, sediment controls, or steep slopes, and 7 days for the rest of the site. So we're always fighting with the contractors to get them to stabilize the site. And they try to play the game with us where they drag a piece of equipment over the area and say, I'm still working. So that's a continuous fight with them, and we have a few tools that we use to help the inspectors out. The basic sediment controls that you'll have on a construction site is a trapper basin. And what you have here are these inlets that are receiving concentrated flows and sending them into these holes in the ground where we hope to get some sedimentation. And that big pile of rocks there is a filtration device where the water is supposed to filter through that before it's discharged. They don't work too good. That's basically what's being discharged. And unless we treat that with chemicals, that's what's going to go out to the stream. So we see something like that, we're going to tell the contractor, we're going to tell the permit team, you got to get this thing treated. We'll tell them to treat it with some chemicals. Once it's clarified, we'll tell them to pump it down, so they pump the clear water out and leave that thing empty. So in the next rainfall event, hopefully we can capture everything, don't get any more discharge, treat it with chemicals, clear it up, and then pump it out. Silt fence is basically filtration. Silt fence is supposed to work if you get any concentrated flows to it. If you get too much clay goes right through it. This is the Maryland law. It's unlawful to add, introduce, or leak or send sediments to the waters of the state. I can't enforce that, the state can, but that's the state law, and that's the basis of all the other laws that there are. Anne Arundel County, our code is grading permit required. If you're over 5,000 square feet, you got to have a grading permit, which means you got to have an engineered erosion and sediment control plan approved by the Anne Arundel Soil Conservation District. You have to comply with the plans, and you have to maintain your sediment controls, and you got to have a separate stormwater management plan. Blanket exemptions to cover the health and citizens' health. You see exposed soil, that's going to result in pollution. So you see it, it's gonna be a problem. They may be in compliance, because they may be working it, but we wanna know about these things so we can get in there and try to get them stabilized as soon as possible. If something looks wrong, it probably is. If you see something that doesn't look right, say something. The environmental hotline number is 410-222-7777. Bob Winchester told you to answer on by answering service. They call me. Okay? You call up 222-7777 on a holiday after hours, or on the weekends. I get it. Okay, so I'm all done. I used up all my time. This was a presentation that I cut down from the one I gave to the Seven River Association. So I'll thank you for your attention. I know there was a lot of information. It went real fast. Everybody hear me? Okay, everybody here?
Yep.
Everybody not here? I'm Bud Reed, I'm the county forester. See me around here a lot, do great things. We're here to talk about vegetation management plans, and that's basically the buffer management plan that everybody else has talked about before. And these cause problems sometimes. They keep them on platform, or they do on platform they don't follow, or very different reasons. This is going to be like a little briefing on a little primer, if you will. Basically how not to get in trouble. Okay? So, what is a BMP? You have one in your hand, should have one in your hand right now. Yeah, vegetation management plan, yeah. And basically, it's a permit to disturb vegetation in the Chesapeake Bay Grove area. Or a conservation easement. And I'll go over the Crook area buffer, there's some detail here. What's a conservation easement? And you have an idea? Cool.
Conservation easement is a lawful agreement that was created with the king that protects the part of the parcel or the parcel in perpetuity from development.
Right. Okay. Conservation easements are found all over the county in various forms. Like Laura says, mostly associated with development activities. Because when they go for a subdivision, they have to provide some open space and recreational areas for the community. These generally go into an HOA or a homeowners association, and that becomes open space. Open space is essentially controlled by the county because nobody's paying taxes on it, so we get a say in what happens on it. And there's all kinds of problems with conservation is, and I won't get into that because people they ignore them. Yes?
I was pulling up for what was the common area in the Heritage Harbor condominium area.
Yeah.
And it actually had the name of the person who was, I think the
some instances where, prior to the Krill area law and the forest conservation law, where the,
This was early nineties.
yeah, the early nineties and, well, actually, even before that, like the seventies,
Okay.
and whatnot, where it was supposed to go to an HOA, and the residents said, well, we don't want to do an HOA. So it put held in trust fund for the county, so, Larry Tom, our planning director, technically he has control over all these, responsibility for all these areas. So essentially the county, was responsible for these areas. But after a certain point, they said, well, it's not working out, so they required everybody to put up set up a HOA. It's a can of worms, like everything else in the government, it's a can of worms. But it is, commonplace place to find, a good place to find trees. A lot of these places are devoid, are just grass, and the HOA is paying money to mow it. Like, why mow it when you can just plant trees? The other, and there is one other area which is kind of rare, but not uncommon, and that's bogs. Have you ever lived near a bog? You. Bogs are specialized wetlands, and they're treated separately differently in the county. There's bog protection zones, so you need one for that too. And mostly in Pasadena, there's some around here, some not too far from here. That's something you got to be aware of. Now, Krill area, most, I would say, 95%, maybe 98% of our VMPs are issued in the Krill area. And with the Krill area buffer, we're talking about the 100-foot buffer, not the whole 1,000-foot. The 1,000-foot Krill area used to be called the buffer, but 1,000-foot now we don't distinguish it from the real buffer. We don't call that anymore. The 100-foot buffer, and that's 100 feet landward from mean high tide. So wherever the high tide is, go 100 feet in, that's the 100-foot buffer. And any disturbance of any vegetation requires a BMP in that area. And it says, or the edge of a wetland adjacent to the water. Let me show you something. Okay. Here we have, and we just use the white area as being a shoreline. That's your mean high tide right there. And this is essentially just sand. We have a adjacent wetland here. All this green area here is wetland. So your buffer doesn't stop here. Whoops. Apparently not. Can I point? Also, I'm doing. Can you see that? Okay, I can't. So that's about 100 feet there. But because this is a wetland, simply a tidal wetland. There's tidal and non-tidal wetlands. Tidal wetlands are the ones that are influenced by, cleverly enough, by the tide. But it's been expanded. I wanted to ask Charles something. From the Croak area about the non-tidal. But where the wetland is, it goes to the edge of that wetland, and then you start calculating your 100 foot. So essentially your 100 foot buffer starts, see that orange line here? That would be essentially where it's at. So you would be right back up into here. And because it slopes here, probably to the top of the slope, so your 100 foot buffer is probably around like that. So it's not just, 100 feet in like a rubber stamp all the way around. It expands and contracts depending on natural features here. And if you're looking, I pick this off the map optics. See this orange here, this green area here, it's supposed to be not a wetland. They're about as accurate as my dark drawing. I mean, they're just approximations. So because I drew it out here because when looking on the I can clearly see what the vegetation. So these are accurate. They just give you an idea of where it's at. Questions on that? And now,
Where would you find the median right order line? Is that what is that here?
it would be on the here, that line there. But you can find on the wetlands mapper by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Wetlands Mapper. And again, there's an error involved with where they put the wetlands too.
Would it be the zero in the confluence?
Yeah, zero confluence, yeah. Of course, being a shoreline, that's changing. Every storm and every wave really kind of moves and changes.
But are you saying that 100-foot buffer starts at the end of that well?
Yeah. Yeah, this is a adjacent wetland to the. Yeah. It goes to the end of that wetland. Then you start putting your buffer there. Yeah. And it will also apply to, like over here. I think you see it. Let me go for the president. Stand for. I don't know if you can see, but there's really tight topo lines there. When you get on a steep slope, it goes to the top of the slope plus about 50 feet. So, if in doubt, and to give somebody a call, like me a call or somebody from the Grove Area Commission, have them look it up, and especially if you're doing a BMP, call one of us. We'll figure it out for you. If you're doing something, way up in here, you don't need a B anyhow. So all your projects are going to be water related because you're doing buffer planes and rain gardens and everything else. So you'll be doing these things. Any questions? Any answers? Okay. Next. Now, what you might need a BMP for, if you're doing a pre-planting. And oftentimes with pre-planting, you need to do some site prep. One of the things you have to prepare for is invasives. You guys go over invasive plants and stuff. Yeah. That's something you probably should do because pre-planting invasives usually don't go very far. Like I said, you have vines, one offhand around here. It's Asiatic bittersweet, Japanese honeysuckle. Trumpet creeper, ivy, English ivy, and the bad one, kudzu. Of course, like I want to say, if you have kudzu, just walk away, just actually run away and find another site, sell the property, move away. Don't go there. You also got to have dead trees. And removal of hazardous trees. You'll need a BMP. Any questions? Huh? You always use the police with it. Yeah. Now. Okay. project. Keep it, to do the VMP, the VMP you can turn around in a couple days. Saying grading plans will take 2 weeks. Depending on how big the hurry you are. But if you keep it under 5,000 square feet, we can do it with VMP. Real simple. Now 5,000 square feet is only 70 feet by 70 feet. Which is like the size of this room there. Actually, it's small as this room. But it's not a very large area. And especially if you're dealing with natives, things like that. Another thing you don't want to do is use mechanized equipment. Don't bring a bobcat in there, because that's going to be, somebody's going to complain. And we keep your ground disturbance to a minimum. Like John said before, when soil explodes, that's when it moves. If you keep it covered, you're okay. It's not going to move. Okay, questions? Okay, paperwork. Fill out the form. You know, front page is applicant's information and the site information. Fill out the best you can. On the second page, there's a signature required. Whoever's property it is, if it's the homeowners association, or say if you're doing a park, the park manager, whatever. Whoever's in charge of that property, they should sign the application. Question?
So back to my homeowner's example, I'm looking on the parcel in the tax database, it has the name of a person who no longer lives there. He was listed as a homeowner's way back.
Yeah.
Current president of the homeowner?
Currently fine. What you can do, I can call the tax office and tell them, say, hey, you know, this guy's in Boca Raton or something like that.
He wishes.
Or he's a gun dog or something like that. But he moved away, he no longer thinks so. Anyhow, fill out what you can. Attach maps. Maps are good. If you have a planning plan, what's going to do your project, throw that on there. Photos are great. It helps out a lot. And right in there, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? The list of steps. This is going to be part of the step where you're creating habitat, you know, what's your target species and all that. More merrier. Now you can fill it out online, because you can write all the thing there, except for the signature. You can't sign it electronically, unfortunately, yet. But you have to print it at some point, sign it by whomever, and then you can scan an email or mail it. I think that's be mailed, faxed, hand delivered, or emailed. And these are all the we mail it the parking section, 2664 Rudy Road, mail stop 6201. There's a fax number, and there's email. That's our administrative assistant, Laura, and she'll get it and send it to us. Where's that? And that too, I guess.